Challengers.
Challengers?
Whoa.
What's that?
Oh, sorry, guys. Challengers is a 2024 psychosexual thriller. It stars Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, Mike Fice. It is directed by Luca Guadagnino and written by Justin Kuritzkes, a.k.a.
Potionzilla.
The movie follows three young tennis players from their late teens to their early 30s, chronicling their relationship with love, sexuality, and romance as it becomes tangled with their love of tennis. Or were all those things the same thing all along?
Ooh, I like that.
Alright.
As you may know, Challengers is widely anticipated since its first trailer.
Especially if you're gay.
And since the movie has come out, it has been extremely well received from audience and critics alike. I mean, everyone loves this film. Everyone. I mean...
Okay, except us.
Yeah, that shit was kind of mid.
I mean, we liked the movie.
The movie's actually pretty good, but it left us wanting more. But why?
I think the reason we want more is because of how strong other aspects of the film are. Challengers on the first watch demonstrates a clear mastery of its own aesthetic. Luca Guadagnino knew exactly what he was doing when he was making Challengers. From the cinematography and the composition, reveling in the beauty of its main cast, to its bombastic score and sound design, Luca Guadagnino executes his vision to a T. And you can see Guadagnino's confidence bleed into the performance of the three main leads. Zendaya, Fice, and O'Connor all give great performances, and their chemistry is palpable. If threesome was an aesthetic, this movie pushes that aesthetic to its very limits.
Like we said, we liked the movie. We just think it fumbled its most valuable asset.
Well, before we get into that, let's take it back all the way to the very beginning.
This should look like ass.
The Challengers trailers, at least the first one, were not very good, or at least misleading.
The first trailer came out June 20th. I was personally really excited as a long-standing fan of Zendaya, and I've been a fan of Luca Guadagnino ever since I watched Call Me By Your Name back in 2018. And this is Zendaya's first lead role in a movie, and the trailer used that to its advantage.
The first trailer really uses its sex appeal as its main draw. It features multiple intimate scenes, while S&M by Rihanna plays in the background. The movie is called
one of the sexiest movies ever made.
Wow, ever made. That's impressive.
The second trailer was way better. It's more about Tashi and her injury and her diabolical scheming, and it features Man-Eater by Nelly Furtado,
which I personally think is a way better song. I loved it in Dance Central.
The two trailers also put a major focus on its star Zendaya. The critics say,
Zendaya like you've never seen her before.
Or
Zendaya mesmerizes like nothing she's previously done.
And Zendaya does dazzle and memorize, that is true. But the trailer hides the movie's biggest secret. 1, 2, 3.
That Tashi isn't
about... 1, 2, 3.
That Challengers isn't about Tashi.
Tashi is the main character of Challengers, or is seemingly the main character of Challengers. If you look at the trailer, the movie is supposed to be about her being a master manipulator, or this puppet master. The movie hinges on her and her injury. She is propped up to be this extremely compelling character. But the thing is, she's not.
We looked at this interview of the writer Justin Kuritzkes and what inspired him to make this film.
I can tell you the exact moment I kind of started thinking about it. I was watching the US Open in 2018. And it was the match between Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams. And there was this really controversial call from the umpire that Serena Williams had received coaching, and you're not allowed to do that. And I'd never heard of that rule, but immediately I was like, oh my God, what if you really needed to talk to your coach about something super important that was beyond tennis?
It's clear to the audience that Tashi takes inspiration from legendary black female tennis players like Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka, and Coco Gauff.
When Tashi is introduced in the script, she is described as
17-year-old Tashi enters dressed head to toe in the sleekest 2006 Nike gear. She looks somehow like a stunning supermodel and a brutal force of nature, shooting $1 million smile. This Tashi feels somehow a lot lighter than her adult version. She already seems like an ambassador of the sport, a young Serena Williams or Roger Federer.
Tashi is a self-reliant, determined, and passionate young woman who has her autonomy stripped away from her in her tragic accident. She then resolves to make the most out of her situation, even if it doesn't always benefit the men in her life.
Basically, we're saying Tashi sounds cool as fuck, at least on paper. Listen, the only time I tap into tennis is when there's black people. Serena Williams is like the only tennis player that most of us know by name. Tashi's character is so interesting because she pulls from this almost iconography of a fierce black tennis player. And her losing all of that inherently pulls on our heartstrings. Because what if we never had Serena or Naomi?
In her youth, Tashi is complex. Zendaya brings depth to an already interesting character. She's able to charm and intimidate in every scene she's in. In the beginning, both in present day and in the past, she has this sort of intrigue to her.
The turning point of the movie is Tashi's injury. Her injury is heartbreaking to say the least. Her being an exceptional tennis player is her most defining character trait. She is tennis. Tennis is kind of the center point of the movie. It is what initially tethers them all together. So when Tashi stops playing, it leaves this question of what her purpose is.
There's a scene after Tashi's injury. She limps her way underneath a tree and rests at its trunk. You can see her devastation bubble up, and under a matter of seconds, you see Tashi's face harden.
She lifts her chin up, and she won't let herself cry. We all see Tashi say goodbye to the tennis star she was supposed to be, and we meet the woman she becomes in the present timeline. And this is where things get tricky.
But as compelling as the world of Challengers is, the film falls short in its central narrative project. As a study of a triangular relationship, the tension between each pole, Art and Patrick, Art and Tashi, Patrick and Tashi, is what animates the plot. But as the story progresses, it falters in capturing the film's most interesting character, Tashi.
So, what is Tashi's purpose?
Tashi's main focus has always been about tennis. Her relationship, as she likes to call it. Her main arc is about how much she cares about tennis, and how high and low she will go for the sport.
But we don't even know why she's attached to tennis.
You never really learn why Tashi is the way she is, why she's so strongly motivated by tennis, and why she chooses Art and Patrick as her proxies to express it. This isn't necessarily a problem on its own. I don't think every character needs a biographical exposition to be compelling, but one senses that Guadagnino doesn't know either. It's easier if the source of Tashi's power is opaque.
Now that we've given room to Tashi's injury, it's now time to investigate who she is after that. We know that Patrick is a fake poor washed-up tennis player. We know that Art has amounted to be a successful tennis player, but now is at the end of his career. And what is Tashi?
Art's coach?
Okay, we know that she's Art's coach, and I have no problem with that. That's actually a pretty interesting position for her to be in, because at the beginning of her arc, she was an amazing tennis player, and since that was taken from her, her being Art's coach kind of creates this tension and this discomfort.
This is how she's propped up. She's a woman who's full of resentment and grief, and she's a woman who's dissatisfied in her marriage and her work. Now, her arc progresses because she's opportunity to be on the same court of the two men who were there during her fateful injury.
Now, this is the breeding ground for some crazy shit to happen, but I don't know if that's really what does happen. Believe me, Tashi does some iconic shit from now on.
How fucking dare you?
Or her saying,
"How are you gonna look at me if I still can't beat Patrick Zweig?"
Just like this.
And we love her for that. In fact, I support her because I'm a feminist.
exactly.
But what makes the transition from Tashi as a teenager to an adult particularly jarring is a seeming loss of humanity. This is not a reference to her having to compartmentalize her grief in order to move forward with her life, but the script's seeming indifference to her personhood going forward. In the past, Tashi is motivated by curiosity, lust, rage. But in the present, her goals seem to boil down to, I want to see some good fucking tennis.
There has been some criticism of Tashi's character, calling her underdeveloped and in need of more backstory, but even those calls are proof that as a culture, we do not know how to accept that women are capable of simply being as selfish as men. We support women's wrongs until it's a black woman. You are not seeking more context for her. Guadagnino has gifted us everything we need to know in order to understand her. You are seeking to soften her so she may become more palatable to you, to have your hand held as you are used to, and have her behavior excused so that she isn't as fearsome.
Art makes a good point about general audiences being unable to accept certain characteristics in black characters. Tashi shouldn't have to soften in order to have more broad appeal. However, that doesn't mean her stoicism and selfishness should be without nuance. The film would be a much richer experience if we were to follow Tashi more, understand her, and sympathize with her, even if we don't agree with her.
And I don't need Tashi to have an extensive background. I actually like the periods that we see her in. But I need to know her purpose. I know that she loves tennis, but at least I need to know why. Why is she so attached to tennis? What is it that she's even losing? What is so fulfilling? Why is she so desperate to ruin these relationships over resentment?
We were talking about how her character inherently pulls on your heartstrings because she pulls from iconic black tennis players. That's enough to pull us in, but after her injury, it seems that's all they had to offer.
Yeah, it's obvious that she could have been the best, and that's sad, but when you think about it, is that even what she wanted? I mean, should I guess? But she deserves more. Tashi isn't the first character to have her life ruined by passion. For example, when we are in Whiplash, and I'm sorry for comparing Challengers to the straightest movie ever, but bear with me, we see the reason why Andrew wants to be a famous drummer. He has this fundamental belief that being known as a famous drummer in death is better than living a long life in anonymity, and that's his arc to learn better.
He thinks that fame will fill this hole in his present life, and this desire is twisted and used against him by his abusive teacher. The movie is about competition and the quest of being one of the greats, and living up to that potential no matter the consequences.
Whiplash is kind of gay, not gonna lie. J.K. Simmons, the way he was yelling at him, kind of gives Dom and submissive. I'm just saying. Artist interpretation, death of the author.
Okay.
Tashi says that tennis isn't about self-expression. It's more of a relationship between opposing players. This offers an interpretation of Tashi's character. She is not privileged like Art and Patrick. She is a practical thinker because she has to be. A lot of Tashi's character is about survival, and that could be the reason why she marries Art, because he provides security and love after her injury. She likes Patrick because he's also self-absorbed and passionate like her. She uses these two men to fill a void. We know her reasons for being with these guys, but there's still a disconnect between her relationships and her personhood. She's involved with them because they fill a hole that tennis left. But what hole did tennis fill? Hole. Sorry.
You don't have an answer. That's why the stakes only start to feel high with the white guys. For Art and Patrick, they're incomplete without each other. But for Tashi, you don't get to the why as to why they complete her.
Next section, white boy serving.
White boy serving.
Art Donaldson and Patrick Zweig are played by Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, respectively.
They're also America's latest white boys in the month.
And England's too.
Oh, I quite like acting with Zendaya.
Oh, I was thinking about the Queen the whole time, with every swing.
Art and Patrick are each other's rivals and love interests for Tashi. Art and Patrick enter the story as opponents, but as the story unravels, we see how their past friendship crumbled, and at the end, they reunite. From the first flashback, we see their tender intimacy turn into a bitter rivalry. Their heavy chemistry is magnified in every scene that they're in, which leaves little room for Tashi in terms of emotional weight.
In the present-day timeline, Tashi has this role of the voyeur. She becomes passive. It's what makes her fall from grace so painful, because she is forced to live vicariously through these white men, but why does she choose to do that?
If Tashi's incomplete without the two of them, then the film prompts the question of why she needs these two specifically. It would be interesting to dive into psychology of why a woman so independent would need Art and Patrick to get what she wants out of life, but the film doesn't do this.
Instead of using Art and Patrick as a way to enhance her character, it's the other way around. Instead of it being about Tashi losing either side of herself, it feels like those two sides of her start to dominate her and push her to the side. We care more about Tashi's boy toys than we care about Tashi herself.
In the third act, it's match point. Art and Patrick's day-long tension finally comes to its boiling point. Throughout the film, it displays Tashi as an equal player even though she's on the sidelines in the match. Through observing Art and Patrick, she influences what they do. But when the conflict turns more internal, what does the movie's conclusion leave Tashi to do?
The big reveal at the end is when Patrick tells Art that him and Tashi got intimate. When I first watched the film, I was gagged. No if, and, or but about it. It feels awesome because it's like this amazing callback from the beginning of the film. It's almost this destruction of Art and Patrick's relationship. Patrick uses this inside joke between them as a final blow. It's where their rivalry begins and finishes, and now I can't wait to see how it ends.
When we first watched it, I was like, oh, then I was like, oh, then I was like, oh. Guan Yin goes crazy at this part of the movie. First were the tennis ball, then were the floor that Art's dripping sweat onto, then were the tennis rackets where they're POVs. It's insane. After this long and drawn out match, Patrick and Art fall into each other's arms. The front round is cool and all, but it left us thinking,
Is that it? It's like, okay, Zendaya gets to yell, come on, and I'm happy for her, but like, what the fuck is she about to do after this? Like, I get that Patrick and Art get to reconcile their friendship, but what does Tashi get?
It's nice to see Tashi enjoy a thrill of tennis for a brief time, but it's not a satisfying conclusion. Art and Patrick get this emotional conclusion to their almost decade-long conflict, and Tashi doesn't. We have no idea how this revelation will affect her relationship with Art or Patrick.
And what does the reveal even tell us about Tashi? She doesn't even know what the serve means. There's literally a shot of her looking confused after he does it, so she's left out of the biggest conversation of the movie completely.
Tashi is removed from the climax of the film. Patrick gives Art the final test, and Art has the final decision of whether or not to forgive Patrick or not. In a less charitable viewing of the movie, the thesis can be summarized as bros before hoes. And ignoring Tashi, Art and Patrick are able to reconcile.
Everything that Tashi goes through, the superstardom, the injury, her marriage, her infidelity, all lead up to her just saying, come on. This reveal shows the audience how Tashi is only used as a tool to make Patrick and Art stronger.
She matters in this story as a conductor of intimacy between boys. She magnifies and redirects phenomena of considerable force and velocity. A powerful instrument, but an instrument nonetheless. You wonder what she'd do without Art and Patrick, but Challengers makes it impossible to imagine.
Tashi was marketed as the handler, or the puppet master. She was written and portrayed as passionate and calculating. She was taking care of her little white boys. But in the end, she's reduced down to the motivator behind Art and Patrick's reconciliation.
She might have created a rift in their relationship, and she treated Art and Patrick poorly, but in the end she's left with less, and I just don't know why. She has no conclusion. Her only purpose being to be the utensil that brings Art and Patrick to resolution. The conclusion.
Challengers is a movie with a lot of passion and excellent craft, but also a lot of flaws.
The movie has a lot of potential. I mean, we wouldn't pick it apart if it didn't. But sorry, I went to see a movie for Zendaya, but now I'm forced to see fan cams of Art with the backwards cap. Challengers is ultimately written by a white man, directed by a white man, and mostly stars white men. But the only thing that could have made the narrative more complex was Tashi.
And they fumbled it, like most bisexuals do.
On Saturday, I went to watch the Challengers movie with my friend, and it completely challenged me. Because when I saw Art just beg on that bed like that and plead, it was nice. And as I've mentioned in my previous video, it touched diverse audiences' hearts. Because my sister said that he's a snake and you didn't even clock it, but I did. I just like when he's pleading like that because it's good and people feel happy about it too. Because I saw